The life of Niccolò Machiavelli, Florence at the dawn of the Renaissance. To understand Niccolò Machiavelli, one must first step into the Florence of the late 15th century. This was no ordinary city. Nestled in the Tuscan hills, Florence was the beating heart of the Renaissance, a place where art, commerce, and politics intertwined in dazzling and often dangerous ways. The Medici family, bankers of Europe, ruled with a mix of patronage and intrigue. The cobblestone streets echoed with the footsteps of merchants, artists, soldiers, and conspirators. It was a city of both beauty and treachery, where one could commission a fresco from Botticelli in the morning and witness a political execution in the afternoon. Into this volatile world, in 1469, Niccolò Machiavelli was born. His family was modestly well-to-do, respected, but not powerful. His father, Bernardo, was a lawyer and something of a scholar, often short of money, but rich in books. From an early age, young Niccolò absorbed the classics, reading Livy, Tacitus, and Cicero. These texts would become the foundation of his political imagination. Yet no classical education could fully prepare him for the brutal realities of Italian politics. Machiavelli's youth coincided with Florence's golden yet perilous era. While Michelangelo was carving the Pietà and Leonardo da Vinci sketching his visionary machines, Florence itself was riven by factional disputes. The Medici family, dominant for decades, faced growing opposition. Savonarola, the fiery Dominican friar, thundered against corruption and vanity, organizing the infamous Bonfire of the Vanities. For a teenager like Machiavelli, these events were a living lesson. Power could shift overnight, the mighty could fall, and moral rhetoric could ignite revolution. In this crucible of upheaval, Machiavelli learned his first lesson. Politics is never stable, and fortune is fickle. In 1494, the Medici were overthrown. The French King Charles VIII invaded Italy, marching his armies through Tuscany, and Florence declared itself a republic once more. At 25, Niccolò Machiavelli entered the new government as a secretary in the Second Chancery, a role that combined bureaucratic diligence with diplomatic responsibility. From that moment on, his life became a whirlwind of missions, reports, and negotiations. He traveled across Europe as Florence's envoy, meeting kings, dukes, and mercenaries. He observed human ambition in its rawest forms, the cold calculations of Louis XV of France, the ruthless campaigns of Cesare Borgia, the rigid discipline of Swiss mercenaries. Each encounter added new layers to his understanding of power. Of all the figures Machiavelli encountered, none impressed him more than Cesare Borgia, son of Pope Alexander VI. Handsome, ruthless, and daring, Borgia embodied the qualities of a new kind of prince. Machiavelli followed him closely during his campaigns in the Romagna. He watched as Borgia crushed rebellious towns, executed disloyal captains, and appointed capable administrators. To Machiavelli, Cesare seemed the perfect model of virtue, boldness, energy, cunning. Yet even Borgia could not escape the cruelty of fortune. When his father, the Pope, died, Cesare's power collapsed. His carefully built state crumbled in weeks. For Machiavelli, this was a profound revelation. No matter how skillful a ruler may be, fortune always has the final word. By 1512, the winds of power shifted once more. The Medici returned to Florence, supported by Spanish arms. The Republican government was dismantled, and with it, Machiavelli's career. He was dismissed from office, accused of conspiracy, imprisoned, and tortured. For weeks he endured the agony of the strappado, his shoulders wrenched by ropes. Though eventually released, his political life was over. Banished to his villa in San Cassiano, Machiavelli entered a period of forced retirement. Yet it was here, in disgrace and solitude, that he composed the works that would make him immortal. Machiavelli's letters from San Cassiano reveal a man torn between bitterness and passion. By day, he managed his small farm. By night, he dressed in his finest robes, sat at his desk, and conversed with the ancients through books. It was in this intellectual communion that he wrote The Prince, 1513, offering it as a gift to Lorenzo de' Medici. He hoped to regain favor, but instead he gave the world something far greater: the first modern treatise on political power. He followed the Prince with The Discourses on Livy, a sprawling reflection on republics, liberty, and civic virtue. Where the Prince offered advice for rulers, The Discourses examined the dynamics of popular government. Together, these works revealed the two faces of Machiavelli, the cold realist of princely power and the ardent republican longing for civic greatness. Machiavelli never fully returned to political prominence, though he was occasionally consulted on military matters. He wrote comedies, poetry, and histories, displaying a versatility that often surprises those who know him only through The Prince. He died in 1527, just as Florence once again expelled the Medici and briefly restored the Republic. Ironically, the man who had dreamed of serving Florence to the end died in relative obscurity, buried in the Church of Santa Croce, where today his tomb proclaims him a greater name than any envy can obscure. Machiavelli's life was a tapestry woven of ambition, failure, brilliance, and exile. He lived in a world where fortunes turned on a coin toss, where popes commanded armies and mercenaries sold kingdoms. Out of this chaos, he crafted a vision of politics that remains startlingly modern. A politics stripped of illusions, attentive to the realities of power, and unafraid to confront uncomfortable truths. In his life, we see the living laboratory from which The Prince and The Discourses emerged. In his death, we recognize a thinker who continues to provoke, inspire, and disturb. Machiavelli's story is not only that of a Florentine secretary, but of the birth of modern political thought itself. Subscribe and like so this story reaches more people.